pattern, and I really like it. The part you breathe across, it's fitted. It fits tight. It's got a paper clip in there to fit around the nose. It has these darts that fit around the nose and the chin. So it's a very secure fit. It fit tight under my chin against my neck. It came almost to my ears, so there was no air gap there. And then after I added the paper clip, it fit around my nose and tied across my cheekbones. So I was really happy with this one. So this is what I'm going to show you how to make today. It's to pre-cut a lot of ties. I just made a bunch of strips with my measuring stick and chalk, and made a bunch of 2-inch strips on a folded piece of fabric. Just cut all of those out and sew them end to end, and just make you a really long, I think mine was like 28 feet long. It just helps when I'm sewing to just have a big long strip I can grab and cut off what I need. Okay, so I like having a pile like this that I can just grab and work with. Okay, you start with just a piece of paper, fold it in half. I want to measure up 7.5 this way, 5.5 this way, connect the line, or connect the marks, cut on the line, open it up, and you've got your pattern. Okay, so what I did was get a file folder, and I laid my pattern on that, and I traced around it, and so now I have a stiff pattern that works good for laying on fabric, and it doesn't bend and flop when I'm trying to draw around it like the paper pattern does. See, if I try to draw around that paper pattern, it moves on me, whereas this one was stiff and I could just draw a whole bunch of them really quick. So the first thing we're going to need is 3 pieces cut out. You're going to have your outside piece, which is good to be a print. You're going to have your piece that's going to be against your mouth, which is good to be a solid, just because they say people instinctively think of a solid as being the inside and a print as being the outside. Okay, and so this is going to be my middle piece. For me, it's a piece of interfacing. This is what I'm using for my filter. However, if you don't have interfacing, you can use a t-shirt, or just simply cut out another piece of cotton and put 3 pieces of cotton together. Alright, so we're going to stack these. Mine doesn't have a good side or a bad side, but if it did, my good side would be facing the table. Then I would put my, whatever I'm using for my filter, I would put it next. Then I would put my top piece. Okay, and then we want to make our pleats next. For me, when I make a pleat, I'm going to turn it upside down, but for you, whichever way is easiest for you. So a lot of people are saying they iron their pleats in. I just pin mine, because if I'm trying to make a lot and do it quick, I just feel like it goes faster. I can pin it like that, and then I can sew right across it. So I'm going to do 3 on each side. Here's one that I already did. And the main thing you want is for this to not be more than 3 inches, because you don't want it to gap beside your ears. So that's right at 3 inches, and that's right at 3 inches. Other people were trying to measure their pleats, and that was way too complicated for me. Alright, so now that we've got this done, I'm going to go back over here to the sewing machine. And this big long stripping that we made, this is the first time it's going to come in handy. I want a piece to go on this side, and a piece for this side. Now this is kind of my redneck way of making bias tape on the go. Whoops. So I want to fold it right, good side out, fold it in half, and kind of put it right there. So I'm attaching it as I sew my pleats down. You can sew right across those pins if they're... I'm going to do that to this side. So what I did was I put that little scrap on here. And so now I'm wanting to fold it around like that and top stitch it on, and that's sealed off that edge. Now, because I've got stuff sticking out like this, if it's thick, I can trim a little closer to my seam. Whoops, gotta take the pins out. You can sew across the pins, but you can't cut through them. So I trimmed up that. Now I can fold it over a lot easier. So now I'll come back over the sewing machine. And I'm going to top stitch. And that's nice and sealed off on the edge, and those pleats have been sewed in, and it's all sealed off. This is a little bit different than how I showed y'all to do it yesterday, but overnight I just kept thinking of so many things I could do to make it more streamlined. So once again, fold it over, and that's what I call making bias tape on the go. Come back over here. Alright, now we're fixing to do the same thing. See, our mask is already halfway done. We're fixing to do the same thing with the top and the bottom. So here we've got our big long stripping that I love keeping. And I'm going to cut off a piece 40 inches long. We want our ties to be 40 inches long. So we go measure this out 40 inches. There we go. So we want to find the middle of this stripping. If I fold it in half, there's roughly the middle. So once I find the middle, I'm going to fold it in half. Now, I don't have my mask prepped yet, so I kind of got ahead of myself. Alright, we got to put our darts in before we attach that. So I want to fold my mask in half. And I want to go over I'm going to say about an inch, and I want to go down about an inch and a half. Oops, make sure that's the halfway point. Pin it if you have to. I'm going to draw my line here. Alright, then the same thing at the bottom, except I just want a little triangle dot down here at the bottom. I'm going to say an inch up and an inch over. Once again, connect the dots. Alright, I'm going to go back over here and sew on those two lines. So I'm just sewing on my black mark. Just make sure it's folded in half. Like I said, pin it if you have to, because your mark's only on one side. Alright, there we go. Now I'm going to trim some of it off. And then I want to fold it over to one side and top stitch it, because I don't want that to be able to open up and us breathe through it. So I'm going to secure that down. So I just folded it over. Make sure you kind of open it up there. It's not bunching on the other side. So there we go. Same thing over here, folding it over. top stitching it. Okay, so we go back to our attaching our ties, and there's my halfway point that I found where I folded it in half. And I'm going to put that halfway point right there on that dart, where the middle of that dart is. Okay, and then I'm going to raw edges. The raw edges of my homemade bias tape are going to be even with the raw edges of my mask. Fold it in half. And I'm going to pin it now. The way you know the difference between the top of the mask and the bottom of the mask, the biggest dart, the longest dart is the top, the part that goes at the nose, and that little triangle dart was the chin. So we need to know. You can look at them and tell. See, there's a small one, that's the big one. So this is at the nose, and this is going to be the one where we're going to insert the paper clip. Okay, now so instinctively, I mean, you can just go and attach this if you want to, but mine always ended up bulking up right here. So I just usually, since it's secure in place with the pins, I just go to the end, and I'm going to sew a seam really close to the edge. I'm going to say about 1/8 of an inch away, and that's just folded in half. Sew right over those pins, wanting to stay, you know, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. If you make too wide of a seam, you're gonna have to, it's not gonna work, because you gotta have a small seam here in order for you to be able to fold the bias tape over. Okay, I've got some I can pull out there, so you want to keep it nice and tight. So I'm taking out my pin. There, we've got it sewed to the mask, so I'm just going to continue down the rest of the tie. Keep folding it in half. Now, I'll take the pins out. You can check your seam at this point, and if it's, you know, if you ended up having a thick seam here, you're going to have to trim it off. It needs to be kind of narrow so that you can, you know, it has room to fold over and top stitch. Mine's okay. None of it's too fat. Okay, so my mask needs to be, it needs to be this way at the machine, if you can see. Okay, so I'm starting with this seam. It's now facing out this way. I'm going to fold it over just a little bit, and then the other side. So see how I just made insert it in here, get it started. This part is not hard, it's just meticulous, because you know, you can just do little short and it doesn't, you're just trying to make sure everything is caught under the needle. You know, if you're trying to do a super good, neat job, you're going to want it to be close to the edge. Mine's just wherever it ends up. I'm just trying to make these functional. Alright, so now we've gotten here to the mask. I will have to clip all of this. We're going to fold over. Needle must be getting dull. There's some strings I might want to go ahead and get out of the way. Alright, let's stop. this is where I'm wanting to put my paper clip in there. You want to stop when you get right there and insert your paper clip. So what I did was I took a paper clip and bent it on the ends because I thought it might help it not to slide back and forth as much. So you're going to insert it where you're into that little piece of bias tape you're making, or trim, or stripping, whatever you want to call it. There we go. So kind of the halfway of the paper clip, halfway the dart, that's going to be the part that's right over your nose. Okay. Okay, I guess I'm just going to finish sewing it in there and hopefully not hit the... I was going to say I might sew a little bit past it and then push it back in there. Well, there we go. We got it sewed in there. So we're just finishing the tie to the end. Kind of go back and forth there on the end and trim at my ends. Alright, so now you can see that the top is done. It's got the paper clip in there. Got strings everywhere. So you can bend it around the nose. So now we're going to repeat the same thing. Get a 40-inch piece of stripping, cut it off my roll, fold it in half, put it on there exactly the same way we did the top, except of course we're not going to put a paper clip when we get to the halfway point. This is what it looks like when you're done. And it fits really good.